Hey guys, Danny with Danny Gustin Fitness Podcast here with one of our top trainers, Josh Romero, his client, John Wills. John has been a member of Anytime Fitness in Naperville here and our personal training program for a while now. And just in the last couple of years, John has completely transformed with his fitness. He's lost almost 40 pounds. He was right at the beginning stages of when Ozempic and semaglutide were kind of being brought to the forefront. He ended up not going that direction and really opting for making dietary changes through going lower carb, lower sugar, strength training, getting more active. And so we explore that, some of the things that worked for John, things that didn't work for John, things that were, technology that John was able to leverage, how his personal training and strength training program works into all that. And John, despite not being an expert, right, a client, he really comes off as one. He has a lot of great insights, and I think you guys will really enjoy this. So again, thank you, John. Thank you, Josh. John, thank you for being on, Josh. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Good.
So John, you've been a member and a client for a long time.
To Anytime Fitness, I've been a member, well over 10 years.
Yeah.
And, on and off in the prior years, but still kind of kept in touch, kept paying the fees, trying to come out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things I found really interesting about your story is, you worked with one of our previous personal trainers, Joe, for a number of years, right? Mm-hmm. And I saw you get stronger. I saw you make progress, get more fit overall. But somewhere along the line, you drew this line in the sand to where you've lost 40 pounds since then.
Right.
And I know there's certain ways that you went about that, but I'm curious to what was that line in the sand, right? Why toil for years and then now I'm down 40 pounds and I've maintained that? Because that's a huge feat.
Yeah, it is. I think the motivation came from what I call wake-up calls. And wake-up calls basically surround yourself with some sort of event, negative or positive, that drives you in a different direction. So basically, I've had a couple of wake-up calls. One, unfortunately, my dad passed away from diabetes back in 2004. I got to see what the effects of that insidious disease is. And it's always been in the back of my mind. Now, fast forward, I said to myself, okay, John, you're like 30 pounds overweight, 35 pounds overweight. What are you going to do about it? I had been working with Joe, but that was not as much of a go-get-it attempt as it should have been. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this the right way, and I actually went out and sought out an MD that specializes in weight and did all the blood panels, all those type of things. And she came back and said, you are glucose intolerant, which means you're not pre-diabetic, but you're on your pathway there.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden the big flash of my father, and I'm kind of going, okay, this is getting serious. So that's when I really said, okay, I've got 1 or 2 years worth of work before I retire, but I'm just going to go after this now because I can't wait.
Yeah.
So now back then, she offered a couple of counseling, ways to go about doing this. One, of course, is the infamous Ozempic, semaglutide type of thing. But back then, it was just coming on board.
And how many years ago was this?
It's about 2 years, 2.5 years ago.
2.5, okay.
So she said, it's probably not a good option because A, you can't get it. Insurance won't pay for it. I said, well, that doesn't sound very good. So what's plan B?
Doesn't stop some people. I've heard some pretty wild stories about what people have been paying out of pocket to do that.
Yeah. Crazy. Now, of course, today, it's much more available in certain forms, certain vendors, certain medications. And at that point, everybody's kind of doing the juice.
Yeah.
That's what I call it, the juice.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have that choice, nor did I really want to do that. So I said, well, what's plan B? And plan B was, what you need to do is change your diet drastically, go to a keto diet, low sugar, low carb, really concentrate on it, and then do strength training. Mm-hmm. And that's what led me to Josh. So
I love this doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? Awesome doctor.
Seriously, that's an
Holistic.
awesome doctor.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And she says, you have to be committed. You have to go after it. And, I made myself accountable to it.
Yeah.
So one way, of course, is investing in Josh.
Yeah.
I think we were doing 2 to 3 times a week when we first started.
Yeah, we really loaded you up with workouts that time.
Yeah, we really did. And then, of course, I was watching my diet like crazy, and the pounds just started coming off.
Yeah.
I felt better. I gained the strength.
Yeah.
And now we've gotten to a point where I see Josh like once a week,
Yeah.
but still remain very accountable through MyFitnessPal for diet, through the health app on my watch. What steps am I getting in for the day?
Yeah.
What activity do I have? How often am I getting back to training?
Yeah.
Those type of things.
Yeah.
And you just keep up that practice and routine. The toughest thing is to start
Yeah.
and stay committed to the start.
Well, and that there's so many important things there, right? And I want to have the time to get to each of them. So, would it be safe then to say, going back to the original question of what was that line in the sand? It sounds like, you had some things that had already been going on, right? Your dad unfortunately passing away from diabetes back in the early 2004,
yeah.
right? And then you had put on a decent amount of weight. You see the weight loss doctor, and she says you're gluten intolerant. Or sorry, not gluten intolerant, glucose intolerant.
Correct.
Right? Now, real quick, what does that mean? Now, because I think of that almost on a spectrum probably, right? Like you have person A on the one, they're a 1, and glucose is no problem.
Right.
Probably most people, right? Especially young people, right, who aren't overweight. And then on a 10, you have a full-blown diabetic, right? So I'd imagine glucose intolerant just means
You're at a 3 or 4.
you're kind of moving your way to being pre-diabetic, but not quite there.
Correct. You're at 3, 4, maybe even 5.
Okay.
And your panel shows you your glucose, you're way out of the zone.
Okay.
Okay, so that's something to really take a hard look at. You can go to an AC1 tracing thing, which is, a panel is a point in time. AC1 is over a period of time measurement. And that's how diabetics really kind of manage themselves.
Okay.
But it was really just, oh my God, I don't want to go down this road. So, let's do something about it. Again, I was still working, still traveling, trying to battle those because when you travel, there's a lot of, what I was doing was a lot of travel and entertainment.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
Yeah.
We put a lot of work in for that. Fail-safe workouts and whatnot.
Late dinners, all those type of things, which are the worst for you. But I just started changing that as much as I could, knowing that my retirement vision, I could see it on the horizon is coming, where I could give it a really 24/7 push at it,
Okay.
So one of the things also to keep in mind is that when you start this, and again, you got to be committed to the start. It just gets easier. Once it becomes an activity, it becomes like a norm.
Just part of your...
It's just part of your day, and you're staying active. And people that are aging, it's all about activity and keeping on your feet and moving, strength training, all those type of things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, there's so much mindset stuff right there, right? Because you were someone for years who, you were doing some of the things, but it wasn't until that really clicked
Right.
that you said, okay, let's stop screwing around.
Exactly.
And you still, what I love about that is that you didn't wait till you were retired. Now, if someone has to wait till they're retired, then so be it, right? Better late than never.
Schedules or whatever.
Yeah, but you didn't wait till you retired. In fact, I would say of all I've been a personal trainer almost 13 years, and one of the types of clients that has always been difficult to work for any trainer, not just me, is the one who travels a lot, right? Because not only are you dealing with an erratic workout schedule, but you're also eating all over the place, right?
Right. It's hard to be disciplined in that environment.
Yeah, so I'd love to talk about that. So what were some of the things that helped you start implementing some of those things? You meet with a weight loss doctor, you're getting with Josh, you're starting to make some of these changes. What were some of the strategies that helped you make it easier to implement some of these things while you were traveling? Because I think there's a lot of people who you could be that archetype for them,
right?
Because they really struggle with that. So how did that work for you?
Well, he's just trying to make the right choices. So a lot of times you're at conventions or meetings and those type of things. Yeah, there's probably a big buffet layout. You just got to look at it and say, okay, what should I do and what should I not do?
Yeah.
And so you just kind of stay focused on it. It's hard, especially when you're moving around and you got stress. You're talking to a lot of people. You kind of go out of bounds. But that's kind of how you just have to stay focused. To me, it was all about diet. Yes, I can go to the gym and get a quick half-hour walk in or whatever.
Yeah.
But it really was about diet and about the drinking, clients, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So trying to make the right choices. But it was slow go in the beginning.
It was, yeah.
As it usually is, right?
Yeah, usually it
Got to
is.
give yourself some grace in the beginning there.
Yeah. Yep.
If I can interject too, I would personally say, because I believe, I call it the come to Jesus moment. Everyone has that, right?
Yep.
It just
Yep.
takes a certain amount of pressure. My personal opinion for your come to Jesus moment, because we were training up to this and getting some results, but it was kind of wishy-washy, was the summer about, I think 2 years ago, where you had that conversation with your brother.
Oh,
With
glad
the
you brought that up.
situation with your mom too. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing that either.
Oh, no.
But I personally believe, as your trainer, that was really where just eye-opening experience, and it was like, hey, I really need to get my stuff together.
Yeah.
So if you want to share.
See, this is personal training, guys.
There we
He
go.
remembers things he doesn't remember.
He knows more about me than I do.
Right?
But
Thanks,
so my brother that I idolize, 2 years younger than I am, unfortunately was in a ski accident. And we're from Colorado. We were skier and ski racers and all that. And unfortunately, he had an accident with a tree, and then he became a paraplegic after that. So
sorry to hear that.
but from the waist up, the guy's an animal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it didn't stop him. That's kind of why I really look up to him, because he took something that was very negative and has dealt with it really well. And so physically, from up, waist high, he's in excellent shape. He was also ranked in what they call hand cycling, but for trails. It's almost
okay.
like, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And stuff that they have some meet in Crested Butte, Colorado every summer, and he does all that type of thing. So hand cycling and such. He still skis on a sled every winter and such. But we got to talking, and he says, John, you know what happened with Dad and everything. You ought to start really looking at your weight. And I go, well, let's talk about that. And so both he and his wife are fairly regimented on what they eat.
Okay.
And more importantly, how they eat it. So he goes, hey, listen to this book or read this book called The Glucose Revolution. I've forgotten the name of the author, but she lists out a whole bunch of hacks, I should say, tips on how to do this, and gives you the full background. So on the way up to northern Michigan, I just put in the audiobook and listened to it, and it made a lot of sense.
Okay.
Example, for instance, if you're going to eat, say, a piece of bread, obviously you could do something that's really a healthy bread, but still a carb.
Yeah.
However, take almond butter, put almond butter on it, and the way it's then processed through your body is less harmful from a carb standpoint.
Yeah. Fats and proteins buffer with the glycemic index, right?
Right. So almost it's as important to how you eat it than what you eat. When you do a dinner, have a green leafy salad before anything else. And that, again, is the processing of whatever you're going to be putting down.
Yeah.
And
That's fun.
it works. It works. Of course, I always have to order a salad every time I go out,
Yeah.
and I feel bad if I don't. But
And that goes
everybody's-
back to you saying it gets easier over time because it's kind of just become.
It's the norm.
Yeah.
I pick up a menu and go, okay, I'm going, what health salad do we have?
Yeah.
So it's habit. So through repetitive doing it again and again, it becomes a habit
Okay.
to the point that you don't even know that you're doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you said your doctor low carb / keto, or was it keto, or was
Kind
it
of keto, which is a low carb, low sugar.
Yes. So
Right.
were you monitoring actually being in ketosis, or was it?
I haven't gotten the equipment to do all that. You're talking probably a blood thing,
Or
right?
peeing on strips.
Yeah.
You can
yeah,
pee and see if there's a certain amount of ketones in
Exactly.
your blood.
Right. I haven't gone that far yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So it's more or less just focusing on low carbs, low sugar.
low carbs, low sugar.
Okay.
And understanding your body, and again, you really need a medical device to try to do this, that every time you eat, what is that doing to your glucose? Because it's really about just, leveling out the spikes and the downs
Yeah.
of glucose, and which is, if you do a lot of sugar, your body gets all ramped up, you're going, but as you're coming down, it wants more.
Yeah.
So if you can just level that out,
Like a calm day at the beach.
like a calm day at the beach.
Yeah.
Now, are you referring to all sugar or added sugar?
Yeah, any type of sugar.
Any type of sugar.
Any type of sugar.
Okay.
Sure, there's some things out there. I think for sweeteners, I use allulose, which
Okay.
is, from what I understand, the better if you have to use a sweetener.
Okay.
A lot of times I let fruit be the sweetener
Yeah.
in something.
Yeah.
So if I eat a low-carb cereal, throw blueberries on there,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
Yeah. And then even with the fruit, the benefit of fruit versus the fruit juice or something like that is you get the fiber.
Yeah.
You get the fiber,
And that's
right.
another thing that helps buffer.
But there are some fruits that are high sugar.
Yes,
and
there are.
yeah.
You gotta avoid those
Yeah.
as much as you can. There's some good fruits, and there's a lot of bad fruits.
Yeah, I've heard bananas are probably one of the
And
the top
one-
ones.
One of the ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But they
from
taste,
I kind of steer away from bananas, actually.
yeah.
Yeah, they're great in potassium, but they also have a lot of sugar.
You know what's interesting though? They're actually not that great in potassium compared to some other foods. Like
Yeah.
even just basic potatoes, red potatoes, white potatoes are much higher. Like those types of vegetables or root vegetables, like
Right.
rutabagas. If you ever had rutabagas, those are all those types of starches have significantly more potassium than
Oh, I
bananas.
didn't
So
know
probably just some good marketing on the
Yeah.
banana companies.
I guess
back
it's
in
the
day.
abundance of the bananas.
Yeah,
You get
well, and
them
they're so
in-
easy
yeah.
to eat, right? You
Yeah.
just peel and. But it's
that makes-
interesting, even
yeah.
with the grocery stores, they've started to do that thing where I don't know if you've seen where they are marketing the green bananas.
Yeah.
Right, like high fiber, low sugar.
Yes, before they
tastes like
ripen.
crap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to really conclude the whole diet thing was just it becomes a habit, and you're just trying to think it through what you're about ready to eat, and then how do you eat it.
Yeah.
So if I got a big meal, I do a salad first. I'll eat the vegetable first, then the protein, and if I did get a starch, which I don't a lot, then the starch is last.
Okay, that's awesome. Those are really some great tips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got it all from the book. I wish I could have.
You said it was
Yeah.
called
Could take
Glucose Revolution.
The Glucose Revolution.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've forgotten the name of the author, but she's really pretty good. She's
Okay.
very good.
Glucose Revolution, everybody,
Yeah.
by an unknown author.
We'll find her.
But I think that's a really, really important part of the story because from my perspective, I've had clients do Ozempic and the semaglutide. Semaglutide, for those who don't know, it's just generic, right?
Yeah, it's the active ingredient.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And so I've had clients do it successfully. I've had clients not do it successfully. I've had clients do it successfully and then gain their weight right back, right? And wouldn't say I have a strong feeling against it. It's just my concern is that, well, if you haven't tried other things first, why are you jumping straight to drugs? Especially when, have you had any friends or family do that?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So some of the symptoms I've heard people talk, my clients, throwing up, right? Having diarrhea a lot, temperature fluctuations, right?
Right.
Not to mention you have to prick yourself,
Right.
right? So just those few things alone, you'd think maybe try exercise, maybe try modifying your eating. And if you look at what Ozempic semaglutide does, it's an appetite suppressant and a blood sugar regulator, right? And so what I love hearing about the low carb, low sugar thing is when you look at the benefit, okay, I want to suppress my appetite, I want to regulate my blood sugar. A natural way to do that is to eat less carbs and to eat less sugar.
Yep.
Because you will have more stable blood sugar, which will eventually help with insulin sensitivity. And you're going to tend to eat more of other things like the proteins, the nutrient dense food, the fats, right? That's going to make you feel more full, which is going to help with the appetite regulation.
Right.
So you could kind of get a lot of those benefits just from going low carb, low sugar.
Right. Again, it's about discipline.
Yeah.
A lot of people love sweets. It's tough. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
I was not a big sweet type of person, but yeah, I'd like my chocolate every so often.
Yeah.
And I do have some. I mean, I'm not militant about this thing. You know? But I am disciplined.
Yeah.
I think the accountability of knowing the aftermath, because for you the sweets wasn't too much of an issue.
Yeah.
A little
Starches.
tangent was the social drinking.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we can tangent into that if you want to, if you guys feel cool.
Yeah.
That gets a lot of people. It gets me too. I never do a nightcap, but then you get me in front of some friends and we're having a good time. It's
You know,
But seeing and you knowing the effect you're going to have the next day, is it worth it to keep that lifestyle in? I think you learned very early that it wasn't.
it wasn't, but you know, it's unfortunate, but our whole social event stuff is surrounded by eating and drinking.
Yes.
And so you can have a little bit. Again, what are you drinking?
yeah, so true.
So I would like just sip some tequila.
Just like a rum and Coke, right?
Yeah.
It's probably the opposite, right?
I don't throw it down. I'm not doing shots or anything
Yeah,
like that. The other thing is you do vodka soda, you know, with a lime.
Yeah.
So if
find a
you
way.
have to drink, those are the type of things I try to do. I try to stay away from wine, but I do have wine every so often
Yeah.
because wine's very sugar.
Yeah. But one of the things, you know, I like hearing, you know, that you have that struggle, but you are finding a way to make this sustainable for you, right? Because
Correct.
if you maybe went too extreme all the way on all these different things, you know, it might have worked for a time, but gosh, I mean, you've had this weight off now for what, almost a year now? 6
A
months
little
at
bit more
least?
than that.
A little more than a
Yeah,
year. Probably a year and a
18
half now.
months, yeah.
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 Yeah. And you look great.
Oh, thanks.
Some of you, you'll have to see a shirtless picture of John.
Jeez.
Well, we got the pics hanging up front.
That's
too,
right.
you
That's
know,
right.
So.
You know, incentive to come in here, right?
Yeah.
So you, as the trainer, Josh, you're helping John with the strength training side of things, right?
Yeah.
And so when John was going lower carb, lower sugar, did you notice anything, or did you have to navigate that differently with how you programmed?
We worked with what we got because he was also going through some aches and pains with his shoulders and
Okay.
some sciatic nerve pain. So I think when we were really kicking it off, it was a huge jump, and I think the body some days couldn't keep up and accommodate.
Yeah.
And I remember we got you down to like 160, and your calorie deficit was like 1,200 calories.
Well, that was the thing. I was trying to live on 1,200
And
calories a day.
You were adamant on the number 160, and we got you there. But your wife talked about you being foggy-headed and noticing things
foggy-headed.
more.
In fact, that was one exercise we were doing where I got a little foggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, we came to terms with like bumping the calories back up and being okay with knowing, hey, I'm a couple pounds heavier than what my target number was, but I feel better and I look better.
Yeah, and I try to, with MyFitnessPal, to say around 1,400 to 1,500 calories a day.
Okay.
Is my norm.
Okay.
But
And
going
when you-
back to real quick to me noticing a difference, hands down, I mean, the shoulder mobility, you got 20, 30 pounds less of pressure on these joints.
Yeah.
You should be able to move better, and you have been. We've had days where he wasn't able to bench press 20-pound dumbbells.
Yeah.
And now we're doing like 35s, 40 pounds on good days,
awesome.
you know?
Yep, yep.
And same thing with the sciatic nerve pain. You'd go to your shows on the road and
on my feet
expecting,
all day.
expecting that leg to fire up. And when you started losing the weight, either A, it would fire up minimally where like I feel it, but not as intense, or it just went away. And I think recently, like a week or two ago, I asked you and you're like, I haven't even thought about that pain.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so-
I mean, I still feel the shoulder. I work with Ken.
Yeah.
Really the lower pec and the deltoid in the back, which seems to be the issue, you know,
Yeah.
with the left shoulder.
Yeah.
That's really helped as well.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know?
Ken is what is it? Massage and motion, or what's this business? Do you know, Nico?
I'll tell you here in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's in my contact list.
Balance in motion.
Balance in motion, right? Ken, yes.
Quick
Ken
plug
is a-
right there.
Yeah, plug for Ken. Ken's a
Yeah.
great massage therapist and a character.
Oh, definitely.
Probably not many,
Yeah.
haven't met many people like Ken, right?
Yeah, but very in shape,
Yeah.
very mindful, understands the body anatomy well.
And he's a
Pretty
passionate
impressed.
guy.
And he's very
Overall.
Oh, yes.
Yes, very passionate.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you increase the calories, now were you careful to, because you mentioned that you were feeling like you were kind of running on fumes to an extent sometimes
Yeah.
with your workouts, right?
Right.
So when you're in that situation and you bump the calories, 1,200 to like maybe 14, 15 is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Were you deliberate about making sure those extra calories were limiting the carbohydrate department, or were you less discerning about that? How did that play out, John?
You mean still trying to keep the carbs
So you-
down
you're-
and
you
make
did, so you determined that you were kind of running on fumes and you needed increased calories.
Right.
So where did those extra 300 calories come from?
really proteins
Okay.
and vegetables
Yeah.
type stuff. I also use an app because I think Nico uses it quite a bit, and that's Yucca.
Yucca, right?
Right. So Yucca is a good way to find the right foods that don't have all the processing and the bad stuff in it and all that. So using these tools can really help you find the right type of proteins, protein bar, like I just had an Aloha bar, which Yucca loves.
I love Aloha
Yeah.
bars too.
Yeah.
It's mostly dates,
right
right?
before I came over to work out today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm kind of mindful in doing it that way.
Seems like you've leveraged technology a lot.
Yeah, MyFitnessPal is all locked in with my health app,
Yeah.
my iWatch.
Or scans that we do in, he'll go on vacation and we expect to gain some
Yeah.
weight or whatever that looks like. And scanning in afterwards when you come back is more than enough accountability to say, hey, let me keep my reins on,
Right, right. A lot of times I didn't really fall off the table. When
Oh
I came
yeah,
back.
no, yeah. We
awesome.
got him to
Yeah,
a
I
point.
know.
He used to bump up maybe a pound or two, and now he's stabilized to where you're going on your vacations, enjoying and having a good time, and now the weight doesn't budge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's movement too.
Yeah.
Walking, walk everywhere, just move everywhere. When I play golf, I walk 18. I don't ride in a cart.
Yes.
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
Yeah, that's an amazing example of something, Nico, we've talked about this a few times on the podcast, just the idea that it's difficult to, I think sometimes people come in here wanting to work with a personal trainer and they sort of have, created this time to do this, but it's over here. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
And the best results I've always seen people make over the years is where they really change on the inside, right? It's hard to be a healthy person who doesn't make healthy decisions, or a fit person who doesn't make fit decisions, and so on and so forth, right?
Right.
And so I think so cool about this is it sounds like you've really, would you say you feel like you've changed as far as like how your identity and your value system around health since you've started this process?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what the reward systems are. Because
Okay.
if you're not getting rewarded, then what the hell are you doing it for?
Yes.
Very good point.
So, of course, the first motivation was to be healthy. So all my panels, as I do these checkups with the MD, are all good. When I do the bioscan over here, and we've been, matching up scans, it's amazing to get the latest scan and see that my bio age is now 55 years old.
Hey,
Okay.
there we go.
And not 69, which is what I am now, age-wise.
Yeah.
So
15 years younger.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
People, I'm down 2 or 3 pant sizes. I used to be a 35, 36. Now I'm down to a 31, 32. And people notice and they say complimentary things, I also learned via my wife's counseling is don't drag your weight and what you're going to eat and all that into the group because then it comes off wrong.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So no, keep it to yourself. You know what you need to do. Don't make a big splash out of it. Don't make it like, well, John can only have this, so we're not going to have that.
Yeah.
Type of deal.
There's a lot of wisdom to that one in several regards. So for one, I read a book once that was talking, I forgot what it was even called, but basically one of the things he was talking, it was about behavioral psychology. And he was talking about how, well, on one end, you have the negative side of it, where you tell people and maybe they don't have your best interest at heart, right? Crabs in a bucket. Have you ever heard that term,
I
right?
have heard that
You try
term.
to get out of the bucket and people don't let you, right? Oh, really? You're gonna eat a salad, John? Right? That kind of thing.
Right.
But on the flip side, there can be the other thing that's just as insidious, where you're telling people about what you're doing, and sometimes they are willing to congratulate you to the extent as if you've already done it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to lose weight. Oh, wow, that's amazing. That's so great. And then in your brain, you're like, it's as if I've already lost the weight.
Yeah.
I think I'm done now.
Yeah.
Well, and when you let them always bring up the subject,
Yeah.
hey, how did you do it, or whatever, because what you don't want to do is unsolicited start providing
Yeah,
advice,
sure.
because that turns a lot of people off.
Yeah.
So you're looking at it more from the standpoint of just being respectful, kind, thoughtful,
Yeah.
of just people in your life.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Have you inspired some people in your life?
I want to think that there's some inspiration to my stepdaughter-in-laws, who look great now. They really, really slimmed down. Now, they were using the juice as well,
Oh, man.
but they do work out.
That's good.
And they are a little bit more mindful of what they're eating and such, I believe.
Okay.
I think the horde, they know that they can keep up with grandpa now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
publicly use that term too much because my wife does not like that term. But there are 4 grandboys that
Okay.
are between 8 and 3.5, 4 years old, and very active. Yeah.
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 So they keep you moving.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that your stepdaughters are strength training or in exercising.
Yes.
Because one of the major side effects I've heard of semaglutide is that if you lose all this weight, you are going to be more prone to losing muscle. And so you're already prone to losing muscle even without being on semaglutide, as you are in a significant caloric deficit.
Right.
And then you combine, so that's where strength training comes in.
Yeah.
And then you combine that with being on semaglutide, and then it's even more susceptible, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, to their credit, they've watched what they eat, you know. Do they still go out socially and party a little bit? Well, at their age, that's expected, you
Yeah.
know. But I think they've limited themselves, more mindful about what they're eating, and, you know, with that aid. And I don't think they're doing it a lot,
Yeah.
you know. I don't think they're like addicted to it or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're doing it, you know. And I don't know if I was an inspiration to them or not. I dare not ask them.
Well, I could respect that.
Yeah.
Mr. Humility over here.
Yeah. Well, it's important. You know, you just don't want to. Hey, it's about me.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Now, speaking of inspiration, you keep mentioning your wife. So it sounds like she has some experience, education, or passion for a lot of the things we're talking
She
about.
works out every morning at 8:00 in a circuit class,
Okay.
which also becomes very social as well. You know,
Yeah.
so that now we're hanging out with her. You know, that those people that go to this workout
Yeah.
thing. You know, they called their 360 friends or something. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
But she's pretty religious about it. She tries to watch what she eats, you know, and sometimes gets a little despondent about not getting the results she wants, but then she wants a lot of results very fast.
Yeah.
So it just takes time. But she's doing a good job as well.
And that's sort of a consistent theme that is comes up for women, right? You know, their husband and them both get on the same diet or both start working out, and the husband tends to lose more weight. And I mean, I've trained a lot of women over the years, and I've heard this story a bunch of
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
and it's, you know, it kind of stinks sometimes when, as a trainer, you really sort of have to just say, life is not fair.
Right.
And I think it sucks that you're not losing weight doing all the same things your husband's doing. That being said, let's keep
keep
going.
going.
Let's figure out. We'll find those missing pieces of the
Exactly.
puzzle. You know, but
Exactly.
we know one of the missing pieces of the puzzle is testosterone, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we have that advantage, right?
Yep.
So speaking, you know, going back to your overall strategy, these things that you've implemented over time, what were some of the things that have been either A, they were difficult to sustain, and maybe also things that you've had to modify your approach over time, right? So for example, one might start using MyFitnessPal religiously for every single meal, and then I've heard of some people go to a modified version where it's just, they track when they know they're going to do a meal that's going to be a little bit more crazy just to keep them
Right.
honest, or maybe it's some other thing. But what were some of the things that maybe you implemented initially and were more difficult to instill?
Well, being accountable to yourself was difficult, and using the aids that are telling you that you're not being accountable. Okay, so MyFitnessPal is a classic, and I was very committed to it. I was putting it in every day, tracking and all this, to the point that my wife's going, you crazy. But you do it, and then now I use MyFitnessPal, but I'll use it every 1 or 2 days, 3 days, lighten it up a little bit. I don't have to be that regimented about it. And do check-ins, okay? Okay, like today, how did I do? What did I eat? How did I eat it? Those type of things.
Okay.
I do track on iHealth through the watch, how many steps.
That's through Apple Watch?
Yep.
Okay.
How many steps have I done today? Which, i.e. walking, which is an important thing. Again, moving around, being active. The strength training. And then MyFitnessPal interrelates everything and says, okay, you just gave yourself another 300 calories you can eat today.
Yeah.
Because of working. Yeah, I mean, so things like that are kind of interesting. But I have kind of said, okay, I'm not going to be as regimented. I'm going to get comfortable.
Okay.
Keeping up with everything, but it becomes a habit, and it's unconscious at that point.
And that's where, you mentioned that you have these check-ins.
Yep.
Right. So it sounds like you've maybe started over here and maybe it's moved a little bit closer to here, but you also have these check-ins to keep you honest. So maybe, like, let's say you did have a scan or something like that, or your blood work, and you were like a little maybe more here, you
Yeah.
might, I got to tighten it up a little bit.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's an ebb and flow to it.
Yeah, that body scan thing is actually pretty cool. 'Cause
Yeah.
we've been doing it quite a bit, and there are some times where I've probably have fallen backwards.
Yeah.
But it tells you, where have you gained the muscle, lost the muscle, where's the fat, water weight, which
Yeah.
is unfortunately a side effect of some blood pressure medication I'm taking, which I just found out about too through my MD, and who's a different person than the weight person.
Okay.
And I go, yeah, I just can't seem to come high on this water weight thing on the body scan. He goes, oh, that's just a side effect of amalpine that you're taking. I go, why didn't you tell me that
By the
10
way,
years ago?
We're all trying to hound in
Yeah.
what it is because he produces more creatine
John's in the
too.
sauna with the
Yeah.
sweatsuit,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now he gives me a water pill.
Okay, I've
I
heard of
take
that
every
before,
morning,
that combo.
hydrochloride or whatever, something like that.
Okay.
And it seems to be helping. It's gotten the percentages down, but I'm still
Yeah.
kind of high in water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one thing is just amazing about your story, John, is you're kind of a poster child for almost all of the things that we like to talk about as trainers. And
Yeah.
you, in some ways, you implement them, I think, better than maybe even we do. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about strength training, you're talking about walking and being active, you're talking about making sure it integrates into your social life.
Right.
You're talking about modifying and having flexibility and having check-ins. You're even going as far as saying, this is more of like a newer age concept of the importance of celebrating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And having
Positive feedback.
I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, so Josh, what are some of the things you've learned from watching John's story?
Well, I don't even know. Like, there's so many things that can cascade from that question because I was looking at our training program, and we're going on 2 years next month at the end of the month. And just reflecting back, you were one of the first people I picked up, and we're in two different walks of life right now. He's retiring. I was just starting training, and it was, do I even have the confidence to train someone in this caliber,
Yeah.
and like learning just mentorship even outside of the training that we do when we get more into like personal life or even some finance or business stuff.
We're talking about all the time when we're working out.
Yeah, and who would have thought that someone like us two could connect through fitness? Everything kind of circles back around to that,
Yeah.
So it's so awesome. And especially seeing you're retired now, So you got a good chunk of time on your hands.
Yep.
But knowing your lifestyle before the retirement, I'd say my biggest challenge that I saw coming across was how busy you were and bouncing around from different states,
Yep. We're
and
doing
getting
a
you
lot.
back on track with that,
Yeah.
But for me, I think the best thing that I can take away from you is the kind of different phases of life that you went through and what to kind of expect, and your interests versus mine too, like I said, I'm 25 years old, you're 69 years old. Who would think you guys have much in common? But when we get actually to talking to certain things, we're both parents, we're both dads, we're both husbands. There's way more to relate and connect to on those personal levels.
Yeah.
And we're getting a good workout in and losing weight in the process.
So it's a relationship. It's a social thing. I mean, it all wraps together, makes the whole experience, gratifying.
Yeah.
And fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you're talking about your age difference, and I've considered that before. I mean, I've been training a lot longer, but, I'm 35 now, Josh.
Yeah.
But, that is one of the things I've always absolutely loved about personal training is that I'm training people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I've even had a 90-year-old client. She moved, but she's going to be back in town, so I'm going to go get dinner with her and her daughter-in-law, her daughter and son-in-law with my whole family, like in April at some point.
that'll be
right?
fun,
Because it was
yeah.
just, it got so close like that. But if you really, you talk about the differences, yes, but if you really talk about what draws us all together and you break some of this down, it's values.
Yeah.
Right? We have similar values, right? When you really talk about the essence of this, being interested in growing, evolving, right? Learning, education, right? Family, right? I mean, those are values, right? They're not necessarily, hey, do you like the blues? No, I don't like the blues. I like rap, right?
Yeah.
That stuff comes and goes, but these values that you both share and that we tend to end up sharing with a lot of our clients, I mean, that's one of my favorite parts about it.
Yeah.
So speaking, maybe we can end on this because we're talking about the strength training piece of it with you and Josh and gratification. What are some of the things that have made strength training more gratifying for you over time, right? Because it sounds like there's some other areas of your life that you've gotten busier with, right? As far as it sounds like pickleball and a number of other things.
Right. So I do a lot of sports, golf, pickleball, active type of things. Of course, walking as much as I can. But you mentioned the gratifying thing. When you get to my age and you're retiring, you feel all of a sudden an anxiety. Oh, I only have X amount of time left.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to look at it that way. And we say, okay, my wife and I are going to travel as much as we wish. We're going to do a lot of active things, and we're going to make the most of it, but we're going to extend that, and you now listen to a lot of experts that are saying it's about activity. If you keep active, both your mind and your body, you're going to extend that. So it's a selfish motivation I have, but nonetheless, that's the gratifying thing, is that I think I'm on my way to get to that point.
Yeah, and have you noticed, I think you mentioned in some of the notes you sent me, that in some ways your strength training has helped you perform better with some of those other things.
Yes.
Like the golf, the pickleball.
The golf, the strength, a lot more core strength for sure. Pickleball, a little bit better reactions, on the court.
Yeah, and I love that because one of the things I'm always teaching clients, or at least trying to convey, is that a lot of what we've talked about in this podcast so far has just been about lifestyle, right? And finding these things that can be challenging and finding a way to integrate them, finding a way to sustain them, have a flexible approach. And when I think about strength training, one of the things I teach with goal setting is if you just have one pillar, the pillar falls. Right? Think about if we really wanted to be technical, to have a foundation, you need at least 3, right? The pyramid, right? And I would just say more so, the more things that are anchoring you in whatever discipline you're trying to sustain, the better, right? So when you're strength training you're building muscle and you can feel your clothes fitting differently, that's one thing, right? If you're seeing your numbers go up, right? Like, I'm getting stronger, right? That's another thing. If you're noticing, wow, I'm just getting a little bit farther with that golf shot than I was before.
Exactly.
Right? These are all things that
Keeps rewarding you, yeah.
Yeah, it just keeps you in the
just
process.
reinforces each other too. To say, hey, keep going. You know,
Yep.
when you have one of them, it's cool. But when one trickles into the other, or you wake up without that shoulder pain,
Yep.
or you can stretch expecting it to be tight and it's not.
Right.
And then, like you said, we can lift heavy weight. You're losing weight. You're getting better on the. Everything just reinforces itself to just say, hey, I'm doing everything right for the most part.
Yep.
So.
So if you were to say, I love putting people on the spot with this one. So you're talking to maybe whatever you want to do in this one. You're talking to someone who maybe just retired and they're thinking about their next steps. Or you're talking maybe back to that person who's in the busy grind of work and travels a lot. What's your message to them?
Well, it's all about wake-up calls. So a lot of times when I have conversations, it's usually about some sort of relatable wake-up call that they just had. And then we can sit down and kind of really talk about it and what my experience was and such. But I guess it's really going to be about wake-up calls.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you have to determine, oh my goodness, I do not want to go down this road, because of X, Y, and Z. For me, it was about diabetes.
Yeah.
And, I'm just trying to prevent as much as I can and such. I also love continuing down the path because I've sent him videos of golf strength exercises to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay,
Cool.
so we've been experimenting with those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you guys are collaborating.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
collaborating.
That's awesome. Which again
we're
is, I always think that's where the best results are seen with training, is when it's more of a partnership.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really what it's become,
Yeah.
If something were to happen to him, I think I might be a little lost.
Yeah.
We'd all be a little lost without Josh.
I love it. Love to hear it. Boost my ego.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I'll be here.
But yeah, it's what I think I'm hearing when you're talking about the wake up call is, and another way you could say that is, hey, we all need to discover a why.
Yeah.
We all need to discover that meaningful thing that is going to make us move in the direction that we want to go, even if there's obstacles and challenges
Right.
in between us and that direction. If it's meaningful, we'll keep going. If it's not, then we won't.
Yep.
And sometimes, it's a wake up call. It's a life challenge. It's a tragedy that, so
I couldn't say it any better.
yeah. So don't ignore the wake up calls. that is the thing.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen that movie, The Dirt with Motley Crue?
Yes.
Too young.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Actually, that's a relative.
I have seen it.
That's
I've seen it,
that's a
though.
recent movie. It's
I
about the
haven't
last 5
watched
years,
it.
right?
Yeah, I'm just not a movie buff.
But in Nikki Sixx, right? He does the heroin overdose.
Yes,
Goes to
right.
the hospital, and then he goes. He's like monologuing or narrating, and he goes back to his house after getting cleaned up in the hospital, and goes and does heroin again in his walk-in closet. And he's like, you would have thought the hospital visit was
enough.
bottom of the barrel, but here I am again, right? So don't be like him, right? You get your first wake-up call, take it, right? Because
Yeah.
you may not be lucky enough to get one wake-up call.
Yeah. And then the reward systems you'll have after you do it too are great.
Awesome.
That's a big.
John, thank you so much, man. I really
bet.
appreciate you sharing your story.
No, anytime, I can't talk about it any less.
Yeah.
Awesome. Josh, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks
All
for
right.
Okay.